Welcome to The Issue Is. I'm Elex Michaelson. What a year it has been for the woman simply known as Omarosa. She chimes in on Kanye West, Nikki Haley, her political future, and who she says President Trump called the N-word.
Earth to Dana Rohrabacher.
After 30 years.
TV ads getting goofy in the home stretch of the midterm elections. Why Southern California is the focus for so much of the entire country. Joining us to discuss this and a lot more, KABC Radio's John Phillips, feminist activist Whitney Bell, and podcaster Stuttering John Melendez. The Issue Is starts right now. Our guest tonight is one of the few people in American life who can go by just one name, right? Omarosa is here. Omarosa Manigault Newman, of course. Look at this book right here. It is a New York Times #1 bestseller. It's called Unhinged, an insider's account of the Trump White House. She describes her time as the former assistant to President Trump and director of communications for the Office of Public Liaison. Omarosa Manigault Newman, welcome to The Issue Is.
I'm glad to be here.
Good to have you here. Okay, so you're one of the few people who has seen Donald Trump both in the boardroom on The Apprentice and in the Oval Office as President of the United States. What's the difference between the two?
Well, there's a big difference from when I first met him back in 2003 until when I last saw him in person in December of 2017. Donald Trump has completely changed from the sharp, perceptive person I met, and now he's completely unhinged, no pun intended.
What do you think caused that change?
I think that, first of all, the office changes you in very dramatic ways. The presidents always talk about that first briefing. I think that first briefing caused Donald Trump to just really lose complete perspective of what was important. He immediately shifted to his base, as opposed to understanding that as president, you represent all Americans.
You know, you've said that you never thought of him as a racist until you heard this tape, this N-word tape, which you talked about on Good Day LA. Let's play that. So where is this tape and when is it going to come out?
Now, I believe that the people who have it are going to probably release it around the midterms.
So that was talking about a tape apparently that was recorded while he was doing The Apprentice.
Well, let's give some perspective. You know, I didn't introduce this tape. It was introduced by a producer who talked about the fact that he and others had observed Donald Trump behaving and saying things that were completely racist, misogynist, and inappropriate.
So we're now about to have the midterms. Do we expect this tape to come out now?
I suspect that it will. Like I said, I don't control it, but that's the motivation, I believe, behind these folks coming forward.
Did you personally hear the tape?
I did, yes.
And is he talking about you? Is he talking about somebody in particular?
Well, I already shared that the context that I heard, he was talking about Kwame Jackson, a contestant that he didn't particularly care for, that he had a lot of disdain for, and that was really the object of his use of that word then. But, you know, Penn Jillette, one of the other contestants from The Apprentice, has indicated that he used it freely, not just towards other contestants, but production and other individuals of color.
And so have the people that are in possession of this tape told you specifically that they're going to release it before November 6th?
Let me just be very clear. I'm going to repeat, like I've said 3 times, I don't have the tape, nor do I control what will happen to it, so we'll just have to wait and see.
Speaking of African Americans and your job in the White House, you were often in charge of reaching out. Kanye West heading to the White House. Kanye West meeting with President Trump in the Oval Office. Take a look at this.
The liberal would try to control a black person through the concept of racism because they know that we are very proud, emotional people. So when I said I like Trump to like someone that's liberal, they'll say, oh, but he's racist. You think racism can control me? Oh, that don't stop.
What do you make of this? I know you're seeing this for the first time. This whole scene.
I think I might be writing Unhinged Part 2, watching that, to see a display like that in a very, you know, highly regarded place as the Oval Office. And I understand that Kanye used some profanity and some other kind of provocative terms. That's not the place for it. And for the president to allow that to happen in that place, I think is it's a shame.
The president has suggested that this support, I guess, from Kanye may help him with African Americans. Do you think it will?
I disagree. As you stated, I was responsible for African American outreach during the campaign the transition, the inauguration, and in the White House. I think I understand the dynamics of African-American voter and behavior in this country, and that is not going to gin up any more support from the African-American community at all for Donald Trump, and he's slightly mistaken if he thinks a display like that will galvanize African-American voters.
On this show, we like to play something called the name game.
Okay.
This is where we get little Beyonce there, right? So this is where you get an opportunity to, we want to get your take on a lot of people, but this is a way to get a lot of stuff in there. This is maybe a one-word response when you hear this person's name, okay?
Okay.
All right, President Donald Trump.
Unhinged.
Vice President Mike Pence.
Stepford Veep. Wait, that's 2 words.
That's okay. Chief of Staff John Kelly.
Tragic.
Kellyanne Conway.
Kellyanne Conway. Conway.
First daughter Ivanka Trump.
White House Barbie.
Okay. Hillary Clinton.
Brave.
Really? And former President Barack Obama.
Awesome.
Really?
Yeah.
Why do you say he's awesome?
You know, I never, because I was campaigning for Donald Trump, that didn't mean I was opposed to Barack Obama. I think it's very well documented that I was a Dem before I went to support, my then friend Trump. And I thought that he did the best that he absolutely could at the time. And watching the contrast between President Obama and Trump makes you really, really miss a very articulate, brilliant statesman like President Barack Obama.
Yeah, and people may not know you worked in the Clinton White House as well.
Yes.
So I think a lot of people are trying to figure out who you are, right? Because you had this moment, you were so much a defender of President Trump, and now you're so much against him. And at least people wonder.
First of all, I'm a woman, so I can change my mind at any point.
Who is the real Omarosa?
Well, I think that that was why it was so important for me to write Unhinged, so that I wouldn't be limited to just, in this case, a 10-minute interview to talk about my incredible life, that people had an opportunity to hear about the stories of me growing up in the Westlake projects, of what it was like losing my father to murder, and then my brother to murder, to losing my sister, to almost dying in a house fire, to talking about going to, like you said, work in a Democratic White House and a Republican White House, what it was like on Air Force One or in the Oval Office. I wanted to give people an opportunity to get to know the real me and not have other people tell my story.
What do you think is the biggest misconception about you?
Well, I think the biggest misconception is that I wasn't prepared for my role in the White House. When I hear that, where they're like, why did she work in the White House? And the story isn't often told that I have been in politics for 20 years, that I'm well educated, I had the experience in that sort of thing. And I think that comes from, again, a negative narrative that has been told by other people instead of the real story.
I know a proud graduate and a proud former professor of Howard University as well.
University, yes.
All right, we do something called personal issues on this show. This is 30 seconds on the clock, and to try to get to know you a little bit more. All right? So here we go. Let's put the questions out there. What is your favorite meal?
My favorite meal is soul food.
Okay.
Chicken, greens, yams, and collard.
Favorite author?
My favorite author would be, I can't choose myself.
Okay, yourself. Favorite president of all time?
I would have to say Theodore Roosevelt, the longest serving president who really lifted this country.
FDR or Theodore Roosevelt?
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
FDR.
Okay, a favorite Apprentice co-star?
Nadia Comaneci.
Oh, cool.
Perfect 10.
And what was the best White House perk?
The best White House perk would have to be this badge that you got that had a seal on it, and you could flash it at any time, including getting out of parking tickets or speeding tickets.
So did that happen? Did you get out of any tickets?
I'm not telling.
Okay. What's next for you? Where do you go from here? And are you going to be endorsing somebody for 2020?
Thank you for that question. I think it's important that I continue to be a voice of reason in this completely crazy political season. And so you'll see, as we get closer to the midterm, the impact that I intend to have. First of all, to kind of right what I see as the wrong of misleading the American voters before we knew about the things that happened with foreign entities interfering. But also doing work here in Hollywood and some of the projects that I'm doing to bring politics both to the small screen and to the big screen.
So are you shopping a screenplay like everybody else in Hollywood?
I don't have to shop, honey. Have you met me?
Well, this is a little I Love Me. What is that? Does this song speak to you?
Yes, because you have to believe in yourself. Because even when the world is against you, if you believe in yourself, you can accomplish anything you put your mind to.
All right. Well, the book, again, is Unhinged. It's a #1 New York Times bestseller. Congratulations on the success of the book. Thanks for coming in.
Back.
Thank you so much. Up next, a lot to discuss with our panel. KABC's John Phillips, Stuttering John Melendez, feminist activist Whitney Bell. Stay with us. The Issue Is coming right back. You have a favorite dance move to this?
We do the wave.
Oh, you do the wave? That's your thing. Yeah.
I love me.
I love me. I don't know about you. Baby, I love me.
John Fogerty's center field as the Dodgers battle it out in the NLCS. I'll be live with the whole Good Day LA team at Dodger Stadium on Monday, Tuesday, probably Wednesday, starting at 4:30 a.m. For now, though, let's welcome in an outstanding panel. John Phillips is an OC Register and LA Daily News columnist. He can be heard as co-host of The Drive Home weekdays from 3 to 6 p.m. on 790 KABC Radio. Whitney Bell is a writer for Teen Vogue. She's a feminist, artist, and activist. She once even live streamed getting a birth control device from Planned Parenthood. On Thursday, she's hosting a special event called Stories of Women that's all about abortion rights. That's happening at the Angel City Brewery. More on that a little bit later. John Melendez hosts the Stuttering John podcast. You know him from The Howard Stern Show as well as the announcer of The Tonight Show. Now he's an author as well. His new book has the perfect title, Easy for You to Say. We're going to talk about that a little later on in the show. Congratulations, though, John. And
thank you.
First off, let's talk about what we just heard, which was Omarosa.
She is an opportunist who thrives on proximity to power, and in this case, proximity to white power. And she's not the only person to do that, but it's like a part of lateral oppression. The best people at oppressing are people within your own group.
Where does she go from here?
Hopefully away. I mean, I compare her and Trump. It's like hard to choose who you hate more. It's like between the Grinch and the Abominable Snowman. You know what I mean? She's so unlikable. Who's your favorite author? Me. Come on, you must almost do a spit take or what, Alex?
But you're friends with her.
I am friends with Omarosa, and she's an interesting person. This is what Omarosa does. Omarosa is friends with someone. They have a falling out. She reinvents herself, and she's certainly doing that here. So who knows what's in the next chapter for Omarosa.
Well, let's talk about the other sort of sideshow of the week, which was Kanye West at the White House. What did you make of that?
Can we not talk about Kanye West at the White House? Why is there so much focus on that on social media everywhere? It's the biggest thing talked about today. It's the issue is. And we're not talking about voter suppression in Georgia. We're not talking about the possible overturn of Roe. We're not talking about all of these things that actually impact us and not just some egomaniac running his mouth to another egomaniac.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of Kanye. I'm more of a Team Swift kind of guy. But I get that he loves Trump because he does like that big ass.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's just a joke.
I love
It's just a joke.
Because I'm a woman, I can take a joke.
No, I know, but I'm just making jokes here. I'm a comedian.
What did you make of Kanye?
Politicians love celebrities. They always have. And I'm not a big fan of listening to celebrities, even ones that I happen to agree with. They don't have any particular kind of expertise, but what do? They bring the cameras, they bring the attention.
Yeah, both President Trump and Kanye West are experts at getting attention. Let's talk about, though, the big story of the week, because as all of these sideshows happen, the Supreme Court now in place, including Brett Kavanaugh, hearing some of the most important issues of our day, talking about guns, potentially abortion rights, other things. Whitney, are you concerned?
Of course I'm concerned. The overturn of Roe would be catastrophic, but it's already happened. In so many places, quite frankly, abortion is essentially illegal. In Texas, 96% of counties don't have a single clinic, and 44% of Texan women live within those counties. And we're doing a disservice to the children that are going to be raised in houses that are unfit and ill-prepared to care for them. Those are not American family values to me.
Yeah, and I know you've been very open about having an abortion.
I've had 3 abortions, and that is okay. And they have spanned from finding out I was pregnant 2 weeks after the sudden death of my father, to being in a healthy, committed, loving relationship and just not being ready. And both of those are valid choices.
All right, we're going to have to leave it there. When we come back, some Californians already voting. We're talking midterms coming up next.
Good job.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the biggest obstacles for many people to vote is transportation. Both Uber and Lyft are partnering with organizations to offer free rides to the polls on November 6th. If you can believe it, many vote-by-mail ballots have already gone out. Some Californians already have voted. Back with our panel, John Phillips, Whitney Bell, Stuttering John Melendez. It seems like almost every single ad on TV right now is political. Some of them more memorable than others, including left-leaning ads against Republican Congressman Dana Rohrabacher and GOP congressional candidate Young Kim. Take a look.
Dana, do you copy?
Rohrabacher said people shouldn't have to sell houses to gay people, and schools would be safer if we trained students.
I think we've lost him completely.
He's the celebrity TV president. She is his apprentice. Young Kim's audition went great.
John Phillips, do you think these ads work? Do you think they're effective?
Oh, I'm already yearning for the days when we could just see promos for Maury. They do move the needle. If you buy them and play them in enough rotation, money absolutely works in politics. So they think that maybe a couple of ad buys can push their candidate over the finish line.
Yeah, I mean, the entire country really focused, especially on Orange County right now. That could determine the control of the House.
Yeah. I think they are effective. I agree, but I envy that voice guy that does those. Look, he was on The Apprentice. You know, I want to get that gig. Smarmy voice guy. Elex Michaelson is wearing the same suit as Stuttering John. Tune in later.
You look better.
Oh yeah, right.
Your thoughts on the midterms right now?
I mean, of course ads work. That's why there's advertisements for literally everything everywhere we go and commercials on this show. But right now all of our ads, everyone's political position is based on whether or not you like Trump. That's like the entire ethos of so much, and these ads are just like confirmation of that.
It seems like in some parts of the country, the Brett Kavanaugh thing really changed up the dynamics in a good way for Republicans, maybe not so much here in Southern California. What do you make of that? Because a lot of Republicans see Brett Kavanaugh as a victim in what happened.
That's ridiculous. He's not a victim. Everyone has to go through the process of, and I hope, because as I said before in the break, that 52% of white women voted for Donald Trump. I think if anything, the whole Kavanaugh thing, I think women, get out and vote the right way. Vote Democrat.
There's another
I'm
ad.
gonna have to say something to that. You're right. Women, get out and vote. Vote Democrat. But men, the ones who already have the power, all of you and all of you watching, stand up for women.
And John Phillips, I know you're not voting Democrat.
No, I'm not. And I think the Kavanaugh hearings helped the Republicans keep the U.S. Senate. For the first time, Real Clear Politics is now projecting a Republican majority in the Senate. And you look at where some of these very tight races are. They're in states that Donald Trump won and won handily.
We're going to have to leave it there. A reminder, our show is available as a podcast. Just look for The Issue Is wherever you stream. Up next, our panel looks at next week's big issue. And as we go to break, one of my favorite songs of all time, a little Marvin Gaye.
Awesome.
Welcome back. This is where we talk about next week's big issue. John, what should we look forward in the next week?
Well, this typhus outbreak here in Los Angeles, I think, could get very nasty if local officials don't take care of it.
Whitney, I know you've got a big event happening.
Yes, next Thursday, in partnership with Planned Parenthood Los Angeles, I'm hosting the Stories of Women Abortion Edition, which is a storytelling, live music, art, and comedy series, where obviously we'll be discussing abortion. And we'll hear from our amazing group of female performers, artists, activists, reproductive rights lawyers, and comedians as they share the importance of choice.
Alex, I have my book coming out called Easy for You to Say, which is a motivational comic around from being a stutterer to eventually become the announcer on The Tonight Show. But it's also behind the scenes with Howard and Jay. And I'm doing a book signing here in LA at Barnes & Noble at the Grove, October 27th. and I expect you to be there. I'm going to sign a copy to your mother because his mom makes the best chocolate chip cookies.
Really good.
Yeah.
Also, you can get tickets and more information at thestoriesofwomen.com.
My big issue for the next week concerns the race for California governor. The front runner in that race, Lieutenant Governor Gavin Newsom, will be here next week for the full half hour. A few weeks ago, he had his opponent, Republican John Cox, as well. But the big issue that the city really cares about the most this week is Dodger baseball. So good luck to our boys in blue. Hopefully we'll be talking World Series this time next week. Remember, Fox 11 is your World Series station. I'm Elex Michaelson. Have a good night, a great weekend, and go Dodgers.
Look at that mountain. Look at those trees. Look at that farm over there, man. He's down